Lalita, it's good to see you again. We came up, or you came up with a very interesting topic a couple of our conversations ago that I wanted to come back to. In our discussion about how anxiety sort of shows up in organizations and individuals, you mentioned the idea of appreciative inquiry. Now, I don't know how well known this is, but I thought it might be useful to come back to and explain it to our viewers. Are you able just to sort of kind of frame what this idea is and where it's what use it is? Even?
Absolutely. Yes. So typically, and you, Andrea, probably know, because I know you've been talking a lot about resistance to change.
Mm.
And I think you and I, having worked in corporate world and still dealing with the corporate world, there are statistics and research which shows that 30% of transformations, only 30% of transformations are successful. And yet we all know there are billions of dollars spent on change, transformation, and the works. And one wonders why, despite so much of effort and so much of money being spent, and I'm not using the word investment, but money being spent, why do the change and transformation programs don't work? And we also know that, yes, a lot of these change and transformation programs create anxiety within people.
Mm.
Typically, most organizations and most of us individually in our own lives, we start off with what is going wrong.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. It's the classic, okay, everybody, let's write a big list of all the terrible things.
And yes. we are actually very good at doing that.
Mm.
We human beings are just negatively biased. And we have to make a conscious effort. And some of us do it well, and some of us don't do it that well, right? Depending on our environment, on our circumstances, and what have you. And that's the case with organizations as well. When change transformation programs typically start, we come up with a list of things that are not working, list of things that we are bad at.
The broken bits. I think they're easy. It feels very natural to go there. I mean, you've talked about that negative bias.
Yes. Mm. And as much as we don't need any help figuring out what's wrong, tell me, Andrea, what happens to you personally when you start talking about your things that you're not good at, for example?
Well, it's hardly the best way to promote. It's a bit of a downer, isn't it? You tend to, accentuate the negative. A reworking of that popular song. Maybe there's a little masochism in there. It's quite nice to run through for people to go through the, I've been meaning to say this for ages, but that's broken. But it tends not to be a joyful experience, let's put it that way.
Yeah, it is absolutely not a joyful experience. And I'm not saying we need to hide away what we are not good at, or rather I prefer to call it as our challenges, because we all have challenges in our lives. None of us are perfect. And yet reframing, calling, for example, in my coaching, when I ask people, so what are your challenges? And people say, these are my weaknesses. And I said, how about reframing it and saying, these are my challenges? Try that and see what happens. And you can immediately, without them even expressing it, you can see a change in their facial expression, their energy, and their body language. Because weakness means there's something negative in us. I cannot do it, is what my brain is telling me. Our brain doesn't function very well when we say we cannot do it.
Yep.
Whereas a challenge is something I need to overcome. I need to push myself forward rather than backward. And appreciative inquiry is essentially encouraging us to act and think in a different way and to develop a strategy individually as well as for organizations, which is more positive oriented
Yeah.
It's effective, it's energizing, and it's motivating.
So if that starting point moves from let's have a misery fest on what all the things we're doing badly to okay, people, let's work out all the things that we do that are happening that are well, positive, successful. So you start from that point.
Bingo. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which is quite refreshing, and maybe I wonder if there's a fear. I wonder if this is a legacy of that you must build a burning platform mentality. Perhaps there's a piece of that sort of bubbling around in the background that if you let people celebrate the success, they'll feel complacent. Maybe that's there. But yes.
Yes, and I mean the resistance to this positive psychology or appreciative inquiry or work, expanding or amplifying people's strengths, the biggest resistance one sees is, oh, but then you're trying to, give praise to people and it may just go over their head and build their egos. And I would argue,
you think, I wonder why ever not?
I would argue saying not necessarily, because you are asking people to identify what they're good at, not you're fabulous, you're fantastic, you're brilliant. Because those words probably don't carry as much weight and meaning in them as much as when you narrate. So tell me, Andrea, last time when you faced something similar, what are some of the strengths or what are some of the resources in you that you used that you think you did well? So you have to, in your own mind, think about a time or many times maybe when you did so, about specifics of that event, specifics of that experience.
I think maybe this is, for me, this, understanding a bit about the idea of appreciative inquiry, that this can be more than just a program. It's not the thing you do in a room, with a group of people and white paper. It feels more of as much of a philosophy. So in a leadership role, the idea that when you're sitting with somebody, you're not pointing out the things that are wrong, but you're working with them to find the positives.
It is a way of thinking, yes.
Yeah.
And the way of thinking, you can train yourself to do that. You can be born into a family which has positive thinking and therefore you're much more positively or optimistically oriented, not blindly optimistic, but realistically optimistic. And there are stories of successes where appreciative inquiry has been used and transformation and change programs have been successful. And it's all because you don't start with, let's find a list of faults. Instead of that, asking everyone involved, not if there are 30,000 employees, possibly not the 30,000 employees, but asking the 30,000 views in some way or the other, what's going well with an organization? What is good in your organization?
And it definitely feels that the application is very broad. This isn't just something for a project meeting. That kind of supportive developmental style could be helpful for anyone with a team or personally, it works its way up, doesn't it? And the idea of, instead of saying, what are we fixing and what causes and getting into the blaming kind of pointing game, moving into the what could be, what could we be in the future?
Yes, and the basic idea is, you're right, individually, in our lives, in our personal lives, work lives with our team, and at an organization level, essentially the basic idea is you build organizations and processes around what works rather than to try to fix what does not.
And that point, as a way of pulling forward the successes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now,
interesting.
obviously, when you roll it up as a way for a transformation or a change project in an organization, there are some ways, structured ways to roll out appreciative inquiry and do it in the appreciative inquiry way.
Mm.
And we can discuss about that later. The simple thing that we can now leave our viewers with is essentially, it is about asking yourself, what has already been achieved, what has worked, what is going on well within my own life, even in this coronavirus environment, what is going on well with my life right now.
Yeah.
I have a roof over my head. I have 3 meals every day. I have enough resources to be able to carry on from day to day.
Yeah.
I still have my sanity and my EQ and my intelligence to apply it in many places.
Yeah.
That's what is working well.
Yeah. I think that's a really a good message. Yeah. And what can you, I think that amplification is the important thing.
It is crucial because it's the amplification, the expansion that will help us to look at areas where we can apply it when we have to overcome challenges.
I think that's a very good and useful follow-on from our previous discussion. I love that idea of thinking about what is being done well and how to amplify it. That's a really useful kind of idea. And there was something you said earlier on in the call, and I was just reminded of an idea from, and I think it's the fixed growth mindset idea, which was, there's a really useful little word for if you do start on that I can't do, the idea of putting the word yet. I am not a prima ballerina yet. That gives that greater sense that this is that journey of, rather than it's just a personal, stopping point. So that feels like a useful little addendum to it.
Yes.
So well, there you go.
Next time we could possibly look at how does appreciative inquiry build into the growth mindset.
That would be brilliant.
How can we connect and relate the two?
Excellent. Well, thank you, Lalita. Fascinating as ever. And I'll look forward to our next conversation.
You bet.